The Riverton Romances, Book 2, Cabin Fever Craving. Chapter 1. Alicia closed the email from Nikki. Her best friend was on her honeymoon and having a great time. 2 days ago Paris, today Barcelona. Nikki had fled a bad situation in Portland, planning to work her way around the world. She'd found love at her first stop, Riverton, an hour away. Now she was seeing the world with her new husband. Alicia smiled. That wasn't the only romance that started in Riverton. She'd met Max. Their relationship was fun and romantic, and she was looking forward to seeing him this weekend, right after she finished her assignment tonight. Working for Portland's best private detection agency, Discreet Eye, meant she had a crazy schedule. She was going to be spending the night searching through the offices and physical records of their latest client. Songli Enterprises was successful, and that meant it was attractive to people with wonky moral compasses. The owner was sure someone was embezzling. He had no suspects. He thought of the employees as family. Alicia chuckled. In her experience, family was the biggest problem when it came to money. Packing her equipment for the night, Alicia was mentally preparing the order of her search when her phone vibrated. She picked it up. Flynn. She hadn't talked to her cousin since he left on his motorcycle trip, Anchorage to Tierra del Fuego, right after he'd helped to catch the jerk who was spreading rumors about Nikki. She answered the call. "Alicia," Flynn said. There was noise in the background. The level of it made her wonder what Flynn was doing in a biker bar. It didn't worry her. Flynn could take care of himself just as she could. "I'm on my way back to Portland." "When will you get in?" She hoped he wouldn't say tonight. It would screw up her trip to see Max. "I'll be there in a couple of weeks. I was hoping you could put me up for a while. I'm not sure what's next, and..." Having Flynn stay with her would be fun, but if he was brooding over his future, he'd drive her crazy. 2 weeks was plenty of time to figure out an alternative. "You still have your key?" When he confirmed that he could get it, she offered, "You can have the couch." "You're a star," Flynn said. "I have to go. I'll call you when I'm closer." She turned the phone off and set it to silence. She didn't need it buzzing while she was snooping. Mr. Lee had authorized her to go into whatever records she thought she needed. That made it legal. But explaining herself if she got caught wasn't going to get the job done. And if the embezzler was around, a buzzing phone could tip him off. Although it could be a woman, Alicia didn't think any of the workers would have enough access to pull off embezzlement. It was likely an executive. Song Lee only had one female executive, and she was Mr. Lee's daughter. It was 3 a.m., time to go. Alicia sent her boss a text to let him know she was on the job, and then grabbed her jacket. She dressed in a business casual way, low heels, black pants, light grey button-down shirt, and a leather jacket. Not her normal investigation outfit, but she had a suspicion that she'd still be there in the morning when people arrived. If she wasn't dressed for business, it might tip off the target. Alicia closed the second drawer in the desk gently, as much as she wanted to slam it. The office was bland. Ken Collins had worked for Song Lee Imports for 5 years and hadn't brought in a single picture or ornament. It was weird. For the last 6 weeks, Discreet Eye had been digging through the electronic records for evidence of embezzlement. That's where it was usually found. A little inconsistency here, a rounding error there, and you found millions of missing funds. They'd found nothing, and so Alicia had to come into the building. She was searching every office, every file drawer, every recycle and garbage bin. Her instinct told her that there was something going on. In all the time she'd worked as a private investigator, there had only been 2 cases where the client was wrong. One turned out to be a completely different crime, and the other, the client's wife finding a way to hide money prior to a divorce. It was 6:30, and she had maybe 15 minutes before people started to arrive. There were 5 other offices to search, and she was going to run out of time. She rubbed her eyes and reached for the next drawer. It was locked. Alicia pulled a master key from her pocket and tried it. No luck. Ken must have changed the lock. Satisfaction tingled along her spine. There was no reason for him to have done that. At least, no legitimate reason. She took the set of pics from the other pocket in her jacket and jiggled the lock open. "What have we here?" she muttered. In the drawer was a ledger and a thumb drive. Opening the ledger, she saw a list of names and what looked like passwords. She flipped open her laptop and took pictures of the ledger pages while it booted up. The lights came on in the office, and the air conditioning started to replace the stale air with cooler, drier, more breathable air. She inserted the thumb drive and opened the folders. He hadn't bothered to put a password on them. The folders contained copies of statements. This was something more than embezzlement. Before she dug in deeper to the contents, Alicia closed the documents and transferred a copy of the entire file up to the discrete eye network. She heard a noise in the open area of the office. It was surely too early for anyone at Ken's level to come in. She glanced at the upload process count. Half done. Alicia slipped out of the office to look around. The cleaners were working in the far corner, emptying garbage and vacuuming. It had been an advantage last night that they serviced Song Lee imports in the morning. It meant she had garbage to look through. Now it was a problem. The noise of their work could cover the approach of any employees. It would be bad enough if Ken arrived early, despite his normal practice of coming to the office around 10. If any of the people working on the floor arrived, they would know that she was a stranger. They would ask questions, and they would remember her later. So far, it was only the cleaners. Alicia went back to the desk and checked her laptop. The files had been copied. She pulled out the thumb drive, placed it and the ledger back in the drawer exactly how they had been when she opened it. Then she relocked the drawer with a twist of the pics. Curiosity pulled at her. It wouldn't hurt to look at a few of the documents. It would hurt to be found in Ken's office, though. She collected her backpack and took her laptop to an empty cubicle just outside his office. Adjusting the seat to accommodate her long legs, Alicia started opening the electronic files. They were all statements in the name of about 50 different people. All the addresses were post office boxes. All the social security numbers were sequential. "Who have you been laundering money for?" she muttered, engrossed in the information. She kept opening folders, hoping to find the name of the criminal enterprise benefiting from the work. The last folder contained a spreadsheet with a password. "Damn," she muttered, frustrated. This was probably where the evidence was. "Hey, are you new?" A voice cut through her concentration. She kept her eyes on the laptop screen for a few seconds. The voice was a man. The voice was Ken's. She'd screwed up. She stalled while she ran her fingers through her hair and licked her lips. Knowing her grey eyes gave her a mysterious look, she turned her head to gaze up at him and gave a slow smile. It was clear how he got away with his crimes. Tall, lean, blonde hair tousled, deep blue eyes focused on her, a friendly grin splitting his cheeks. He could charm the suspicion out of everyone's mind with that face. "Just here for a week. Audit." Afraid he'd make the leap from audit to finding money launderers, she added. "Insurance audit. Making sure you all have a plan in case of business disruption." Did it sound as lame to him as it did to her? "Well, maybe we can have lunch while you're here." He leaned on the cubicle wall, his grin widening. "I'm always interested in helping the authorities." Alicia giggled and stood up to stop Ken seeing what was on her screen. "Sure, it sounds like fun." The giggle seemed to work. Ken's gaze roamed from her eyes down her body, enjoying the tour. "Let me know if there's anything you need. Files, coffee, a better cubicle." "I'm happy that I have a cubicle at all," she said, dropping her gaze. "Usually they stick us in a boardroom. One time at a hotel, I was working in the basement with a laundry." She waved her hand to include the whole floor. "This is a luxury." He bobbed his chin in agreement. "And what are you working on right now?" This was getting too close for Alicia. She turned the laptop away and said, "Sorry, it's confidential. I wouldn't like to leak the results ahead of time. It could affect your rating." He winked. "Just testing you." He looked around the floor where there were a few people already at work or getting coffee, the hum of voices and settling in replacing the quiet of when she'd been alone. "Let's get that breakfast tomorrow." "You said lunch," Alicia responded. "I don't have lunch with clients on the weekend." It was her weekend to visit Max, but now she'd likely be working. Probably for the best. He'd been hinting at getting more serious anyway, and that was as far from her plans as it could get. Ken gave a chuckle that probably got him more dates than his good looks, and turned to enter his office. Alicia watched as he straightened the client chairs in front of his desk before sitting. She closed her laptop as she watched him. He touched the drawers she'd just searched. She opened her backpack by feel and slipped the laptop inside without taking her eyes off him. He reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew a key. He opened the drawer and turned to look at her. At the motion of his head, Alicia looked away. She focused on the zipper of her backpack for a few seconds. Then, looking up, she smiled and waved. He wasn't looking at her. The bottom drawer was open, and he was checking the contents. Alicia took her time shrugging into the backpack. She needed to know that he didn't suspect anything. If he did, she would have to act fast, getting Marco to deal with the cops. If he didn't, she'd have time to prepare the evidence. Discreet Eye was going to get the credit for catching this guy if she had any leeway. He shut the door and slipped the key back into his pocket. A quick glance at her was met with the same smile she'd used to flirt with him. He smiled back and stood up. Stepping before the cubicle, he said, "You done for the day?" "I have to go to see another client. I'll be back on Monday, and we can have that lunch." Alicia couldn't read his expression. "Looking forward to it." He checked his watch, an expensive one with multiple dials. "Got a meeting. Have a great weekend." "You too," Alicia said to his retreating back. She couldn't tell if he'd noticed that someone had moved the contents of the drawer or not. She knew that if he had, it was her fault. In these circumstances, she'd been trained to act as though the worst had happened. As she left, Alicia called Marco to let him know that she needed to talk. Marco's phone went to voicemail.